this is for your information. He has agreed, or our Vestas contacts, the teams there, have agreed to take any questions that you or the public have. As you know, we can put questions on, everyone can put questions on our website, but if you have specific ones, just email them to me and I can get him to respond accordingly in a timely manner. Or I can collect them right now, but I figure with time, maybe email is easier. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is the Ducks Unlimited discussions, and so I think you've been in receipt of 2 different emails, one around the end of January talking about a meeting where we did go and visit the NRCS area and did a tour, and then we spoke with them at length about their recommendations in that letter, and they agreed that it was too much, that they were, those setback requests were, at the time, unjustifiably large. And we have been working with what actually, what they really would like, and we are happy to report that we are going to be able to accommodate their setback requests and still have the project in the footprint that it currently is. We do have a no-build zone map that we've created with them. I believe it will be shared with you in a supplemental letter. But the good news is that we have that we are able to still have a successful project with their requested setbacks. In addition, we are working with them on some of their conservation programs in the area. As we understand that, and we've always understood that this has an impact, and to help, not only do we work to minimize it, which we've been doing all this time, but we also want to contribute back to the community so they see that what this wind farm can bring to the conservation community. So those are all in the works right now. So that's Ducks Unlimited. We do have all of our questions posted from the community forum, so those are available on our website. The answers to those questions, so the public can go look at those, as well as, the video. And lastly, we have had an ice throw analysis, ice fall and ice throw analysis completed by Persenia. And just so that I make sure I get all the information right, I'm going to read my notes here, but this was produced by 2 highly experienced and internationally recognized Georgia Tech professors with extensive experience in aerodynamic modeling, that's finding my notes, multi-physics simulation, and probabilistic analysis. A lot of the concerns, as I mentioned before, have been perceived risk concerns. So you'll see a theme that all of our reports, including the property values report, the economic report, this are site-specific. These are NEOSHA. They've taken our designs, or preliminary designs, are the Neosho County weather conditions. Basically, these reports are modeled off of your variables instead of a study done somewhere else in another state that has multiple of the different variables. So the results of this, I just wanted to summarize the key findings, is that wind farm operators follow, this is a very important point that I think is missed. Wind farm operators follow several operational procedures to ensure that turbines are shut down in icing and or thawing conditions to protect against ice throw events. These management practices are expected to reduce incident of ice throw significantly, converting most of it to ice fall, which decrease the impact risk to receptors, we call receptors in this report, homes, buildings, to essentially 0 to all receptors. Even in the case, we did run this analysis as well, even in the case that an operational procedure designed to protect against ice throw are not completely effective, so it doesn't work, and all ice shed through ice throw events rather than ice fall, the ice fragments impact to risk, the fragment impact risk to receptors surrounding the Neosho Ridge site is very low. For the 367 receptors located within, I'm going to just estimate, 4,900 feet of a turbine, the average number of expected ice fragments is approximately 1 fragment in 200 years. So this information is for you to digest. It's, you know, and we can ask the consultant additional questions, but we wanted you to have the best view possible when this wind project is an operational wind farm. That was all I had. So I do want to respect the crowd possibly having some questions for my consultants or myself based on the information provided today. So, but if I wanted to also let you guys have one more chance.
I just have one question. I may get this wrong, Andrew. Was it 6.2 miles that
We are more
you
than
are able to do that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Adam?
Mr. Chairman, could you briefly explain?
Andrew.
Mr. Chairman, could you confirm the amount of time the corporation was granted for their expert testimony here?
No.
Was it 30 minutes or freely?
It was 30 minutes.
30
yeah,
minutes,
but I
yes.
know we had a lot to cover.
Okay, for the record, at 7:07, Chris stood up there. I recorded that. And then at approximately over 35 minutes later, they asked if their 30 minutes was up, to which Mr. Bideau said yes or no, that it was not. And I think if constituents can't get up there and speak at appropriate, you know, as they feel necessary, why should a corporation walk in and say whatever they want to say for an extended amount of time? So with that, I'd like to ask a few questions of President Mike.
I think that's you.
Oh,
Thank you.
I don't want my back to the audience. How would you?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Can you, everyone hear me?
Would you like me to stand, sit, what? Okay.
So, you know, when you talk about economics kind of speaks, I think that's kind of Manhattan or Chicago works for money. But do you know how much a kilowatt hour goes for in New York versus, say, Kansas?
The exact amount, no, it's probably at least double,
Okay.
significantly more.
So
Part of the reason is their infrastructure, the nuclear power and coal plants are aging.
well, I've read even if you covered all of Manhattan with solar panels, it would not be enough energy to power New York City.
Well, and so I'm involved in not wind, but natural gas to electric in Rhode Island. And depending where you are, what county you're in, it's double to triple, but it goes to the aging infrastructure and the huge demand.
We have lots of room here.
What?
We have lots of room here. Bring them. Let them move in. Number two, what would you say the ratio of rural data center usage for our aging population is to, say, Google and San Francisco and New York Cities is? Do you think our aging population uses a lot of smartphones and cloud computing and artificial intelligence? And like, who's a consumer here? I don't think my smartphone uses that much energy. I use like 139 turbines.
I mean, there's no way to answer that. That's really kind of a prejudicial question that I'm not going to touch in regard to age.
So the size of the sample was 4 properties. Did I understand that correctly?
No, it's the entire state.
But
The sample that I found to be relevant and able to be analyzed was 4 on top of the interviews with the professionals, on top
Okay.
of the 21 other.
I just want to
interviews.
confirm that. Thank you. With that in mind, what would you say the size of the turbines that you analyzed for those sample properties? What was the height of those turbines in the vicinity?
It depends.
Approximately. What was their kilowatt generation capability?
They're measured in megawatts, and
Well, you can measure kilowatts in megawatts.
generally 1 to 2.2,
Okay.
and the height is generally 350 to probably just under 500 feet.
So that's about half of what is being potentially proposed in this development.
500 is not half. So that's-
Capacity
that's-
wise, capacity, right?
2 and
1.1,
2.2 is the same as 2.2, so it depends, you gotta do the apples to apples comparison.
Okay, but
So
it's
your
not-
question is wrong,
So it's like a big apple versus a small apple.
not necessarily.
So in an analysis like this, how big of a property size would you have statistical significance from an economic point of view? Like would you need 100? I mean, there's probably thousands of these properties that have been affected by turbines, and you've looked at 4?
No, I've looked probably at a couple hundred, and I probably have 30 plus that I've used in studies, but I haven't brought it here because I was asked to keep as specific to Kansas as possible and to keep under 2,000 feet. So there's more in my briefcase that I didn't use for that reason, because I was trying to be more specific to your area.
Thank you.
Leroy?
Michael, can I ask you a question on 330 Northwest, 150th Road in Harper, Kansas? You got down here, this property sold for
Wait, what page?
14.
Page 14, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Who'd you talk to on that particular property?
Murphy Kaufman of Platinum Realty, that was the selling broker.
I talked to the county appraiser there, Ann Porter, yesterday, and she said that sold for $285,000. Are you aware of that?
I talked to Murphy today, who confirmed 385.
That's what she's got on file, $285,000. Also, the Dansville property, we've got a 2-story frame house on the same page that you call paired sales. Are you calling that a 2-story frame?
No, it's 1-story, 1-story masonry, that's a typo.
Is that the 750 North 110 Road?
I believe
North
it is.
is?
I believe it is, but I'm not
Well, you got a
positive.
picture of a 1-story,
I do,
and then over here on your comp, you got 2-story.
that's correct.
And it was built in 1955. And I asked her, I said, how come that thing sold so high? And it's in the northeast part of the county. It's close to Wichita, and that's one of the reasons it sold for that. I've got another one here, page 19. And this was 12396 Black Trail Road, Spearville, Kansas. It was 1.2 miles from Turbine. It sold for $235, $167 a square foot. Sounds reasonable to me. The comparable you used there, you want to talk to me about that? It was 11447 US Highway 50. You've got your analysis on it.
Sure, it's slightly bigger lot, it's 9 acres compared to 6.62 acres. It's 1,568 feet compared to 1,400 feet. It was built in 1999 compared to the one proximate to the turbine that was built in 2001, and it sold in early 2016. The other one sold in March of 17. The one farther away from the turbines sold for 92 a foot. The one closer sold for 167 a foot.
Was you aware that was a Bella Vista manufactured home?
Bella Vista?
Yeah, that's the name of the manufactured home. They put a foundation under it.
The manufacturer I'm not aware of, but it was a
Well,
lower,
you
it was a
saw double
lower,
lights.
what, can I answer the question? It was a
Well,
lower,
You know,
can I answer the question?
sure. Be glad to let you answer.
It's a lower quality construction, and that's one of the reasons that it's sold for significantly less per foot.
That's correct. But we're talking about paired sales,
Correct.
and they're supposed to be alike, as closely as we can get them.
As close as we can get it.
Apparently, there wasn't other sales out there, is that correct?
That's correct.
When we get out west, and I took time to call these appraisers some time ago, they're really happy to have the turbines out west because of the land. It doesn't have anything to do with the real estate, because there's not a lot of homes out there, and they're getting $10,500 on the new turbines out there. You're aware of that?
Depending how big a megawatt they are in the agreement in place, but the ones
Well,
that are
that's-
bigger, that are probably over
The new
3
ones.
megawatt can be in that range, yes.
Yes. And they're not surrounding homes like we have here. And the 21 appraisers you've got down there, I've spoken to them. Some of the real estate people you've got them, I've also spoken to them. I'm just touching on some of the comparables that you've done in Kansas. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it, but I felt the $100,000 mistake was pretty great, and whether the broker, made a mistake. But normally when I go, I usually talk to the county appraiser to make sure the sale is correct and the information I'm getting is correct. And again, when I try to compare it, a lot of properties. And I appreciate your time.
I agree with your support. I believe we actually have the transfer declaration on that sale, but I'll recheck it tonight. Thank you. I'm not answering. Protocol, they have to make the order. Or do you want me?
Do you want us to continue to answer questions? I mean, we want to be respectful of time. We can be here to answer, but a gentleman did talk about it.
One more question.
I'm sorry, what was on the homes that are proximity, close proximity, and not proximity, what is the distance? Is it the same? On your comparisons of your homes, it says proximity, close proximity to a wind turbine, not proximate to a wind turbine.
The answer is probably in the 1,500 to 1,800 feet is proximate. When you get over 3,000 feet, you get farther away. That last one was over 6,000 feet, which is over a mile, which is, it's visible, but it's not proximate. I think I'm answering your question, I'm not sure.
Well, okay, if I was looking at his page, and he said the one that you were saying was close proximity was 1.2 miles from a turbine.
That was the farthest, that was comp number 4, where, and I've got the Kansas and I've got some of the others that are in the 1,500, 1,600 feet. But to answer your question, just to give you the numbers now that I understand what you're asking. So the first comp in Kansas, which is in the Waverly area, was 1,960 feet from a turbine. The second comp in Harper County was 1,330 feet. The third comp in Pratt was 2,710 feet, and the comp that Mr. Burke mentioned was 6,705. And then when I went in to Indiana and to Illinois and the others, they were generally in the 1,300 to 2,500 foot range.
And on the list of, I believe there was a chart that had homes in close proximity to the MAH00011, whatever this is called, that has recent sales in close proximity to this wind project.
Well, they're just in the area there because They're not necessarily the closest, but they're in Neosho County, having some locational characteristics.
Okay, and I'm curious as to how you determined what homes were placed on that list.
I looked at transactions of typical homes in the area, tried to not go back too far in time, I believe 16, 17, 18, and just what thought was a comparable type home characteristic. I didn't put any high-end sales, which I didn't find, and I didn't put any of the $50,000 to $75,000 sales, which I thought probably had significant other issues. So I didn't put every sale in. It was just kind of showing a characteristic of the area.
And what do you consider a high-end sale?
There's very few sales over $200,000.
So you didn't find a 2017 high-end sale in Neosho County near the project?
My understanding is I believe you bought something that was over $200,000 in 2017.
Do what? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I believe there's someone that I thought was going to be here tonight that did buy a large 5 or 6 bedroom brick home for over $200,000 in 16 or 17 that's now back on the market, or maybe has just sold. But I didn't have the detailed information. I didn't put it in.
No, but you didn't put it in the sale in 2017?
The big red brick house, no, I did not.
Just one, less than a minute. and it's
Real
not
quick,
very
Dick, real quick.
Because it's not this, it's on the school finance part of it, with, you know, the pilot program, he's correct, you know, it's a gift to the school. I talked to the superintendent today because I wanted to refresh my memory on it. It's a gift to the school, they can use it any way they want, except they can't pay down the bond issue. He said that's the only limitation he has, you know, with the school bond, you can't use it towards that. And the other comment would be for Mr. Beddoe, where you were saying offset, where the more we raise, the less state aid we get. That's what will happen when they go on rolls, on the tax roll. The more money we get locally, the less state aid we're going to get. Schools are financed by full-term time enrollment, and there's formula that you figure on that. So the school, if they lose enrollment, they're going to lose money. The local option budget, I should have asked them if it was already maxed out. I don't know. The local option budget maxed out in 101, something. I don't, it might already be maxed out, but, you know, when those come on road, the local option budget could be generating more money, capital outlay. I'm under the impression the last time they tried to raise capital outlay, they had a vote, they protested and had to go to a vote and got voted down. That's correct. I don't know if they've had any more votes since that. So I don't know if automatically if they can raise it 4 without a vote. And they've been, I know it's been voted down at least once, probably more. That was back when I was involved. But that's what I worry about when it goes on tax rolls, you know, what's going to happen to the schools. Thanks.
Okay. I don't have a question for him. You saw your question, Jade.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Persenia, the outfit that sent you the thing, they evidently you contacted them about the same time I contacted them, trying to get some information. Amazingly enough, the information you asked for was something nobody's asked for yet. We have a pretty mild climate here, and like Dusty said, okay, they've got a couple of issues a little farther north, ice throw, and I expect the roof of my house will stop a chunk of ice that weighs 20, 2 or 3 kilograms, 4 or 5 pounds, even though it'd kill you if it hits you out distance. My question to people from Georgia Tech and Persemia was, you know, you have this 26-page study I gave you a copy of 2 weeks ago that said that setbacks could be calculated and realistic amount of likelihood that you'd have a turbine blade part throw, and that Persemia did that kind of work. So why didn't we ask for, you know, it's a calculation I said that you could do yourself. She could have asked Persemia to do. They won't do it for me because they've already, so I guess what I'm saying is, would you send them an email telling them it's okay, since they've contracted to do this work for you, but you're not giving it to us? I would like to contract them to do the calculations
Can
on
can
our
you put it in
behalf.
can you put it in an email for me?
I would like you to
I-
release
I-
them so that they can do the same work for me that I asked them to do,
Oh,
that they're not doing because they were doing work for you. They refused to do a calculation on setbacks recommendations for me because they were doing an ISO calculation for you. My email said that you would also have the setback calculation for turbine failure, for blade failure. But obviously, that's not what you paid for, so that's not what you got.
I want to make sure that I'm addressing your question correctly.
I
And,
want to know what they said.
Well, before,
Okay.
I think that you said you asked him for something, right?
Yes.
In an email, probably.
Mhm.
You can send that email, and then I can see what I can do. But if you say,
Why didn't you ask
I,
for
I-
blade failure setback? I mean, it's back to this GQ thing. There's information out there to tell us how dangerous or not dangerous these things are. And yet, you keep asking and we don't get it. I'd like to know how safe I am in my house. If you agree to a 1,000-foot setback or 1,600-foot setback, or the 4,000 that, when I calculate the numbers, it appears, and they're pretty simple equations. I mean, get your calculator out and run them. I mean,
this report is online now, downloadable from our website.
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
it'd
not
be
the report I asked
beneficial
for.
if you read, have you read it?
No, I haven't. I was told by them that the first people would see it would be the county commissioners, so. there
Well,
it is.
it actually, but you're right, I didn't inform the public yet, it was going to be today. And we put it up about a couple hours ago. But please read it and follow up with that question to make sure that we haven't addressed it in here.
The blade failure is addressed in there?
You know, like I said, there's lots of information here, a lot of mathematical equations. I
Thank
think
you. I'll get
to read
that.
it and follow up with me would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just one quick question for Jake too, then, I guess.
You always got a quick question.
I always got
Doug.
questions. I sit here, my mind just spins. You know, we talked a lot about, maps and where where the tires are gonna be set. Can you give us an estimate when you're gonna have a map available that we can look and see how close any tires are gonna be
In
to
the
us?
very near future, yes, very soon, we're
Okay.
getting there. Mhm.
And how do you do that if you don't know what the setbacks are supposed to be?
Well, that is the question. I mean, that's, we're,
You know,
so-
from your side of it, I think you wanna know what the setbacks are gonna be.
Right.
We-
So that's why we
spend a lot of money and
have-
time in this.
we have we have a layout based off of what we know as the world is today,
Okay.
or at least that's what we're working on, and if that changes, then we will have to change it, and that will then
Go
delay.
back and change it.
Right, so it's
That's
a
fine. I just
iterative
hope that,
process.
So I know commissioners have asked for one, and.
And you
Just
understand why we
curious.
can't, because we don't know the.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
We'll move on after a short break.